let's jump into the East. The Winkler Flyers, I've seen them in the preseason, and they want to play a certain kind of way, and it's going to be a tough in-your-face style. But Mike Svensson has said that they want to come out with a chip on their shoulder. They didn't like the first-round exit last year, and, if not for that Game 7 win by Steinbach, it could have been a very different MJHL Finals. Let's start with Skylar. Again, Winkler led by Justin Falk. Your early sense of this club, and do they have what it takes on the back end, maybe specifically after losing quite a few key pieces?
Yeah, that's gonna be the big question mark for them for sure is how they look on the back end. But you know what you're getting up front, and it starts with the guy you mentioned, Mike Svensson. Nobody leaves an MJHL game involving the Winkler Flyers and doesn't know who number 9 is for the Winkler Flyers. There's no doubt about that. Very abrasive player. I think a player that could challenge to be among the league's most valuable this season for sure. And you know what you're going to get with that coaching staff with Justin Falk for sure. And what a tough place to go and play at Centennial Arena. So I actually think the Flyers are maybe a little bit ahead of where they thought they were, especially after the first couple of weeks of the regular season. They thought they might have been sellers at the trade deadline, and they ended up taking the eventual champion to 7 games in that first round series. So I'm really excited to see what this Winkler Flyers team takes. I think they should be right among the top teams in the East Division for sure.
Well, a lot of it will come from goaltending too, right, Palsy? And Malachi Clausen, he's got to be maybe on paper the early favorite to be top 3 in goaltender of the year. He is an absolute stud, and he's going to be maybe the guy in Winkler this year.
Malachi Clausen is a fine young goaltender for sure. He's got the skill, he's got the work ethic, he's put in the time, and he's tenured here with the Winkler Flyers. And you talk about a brand of hockey. The Winkler Flyers are that team that when they come into your building, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get hard hitting hockey. And in this case, this year their defensive iteration is a little bit different from years past because they lost basically their entire defensive core. So it'll be interesting to see what players they bring in and what kind of adjustments they make to be a competitive group this year.
Benny, as we're talking about how hard Winkler plays, you cannot be sitting in the penalty box 6-7 times a night in this league and expect to win. So you got to find the line. Is that just a matter of time where they find how to straddle that line, or is that something that we're going to be talking about with the Flyers all year, that they're consistently in the penalty box?
Yeah, you got to, like you said, you got to fine tune that line. You can play your aggressive in your face style. You got to make sure you do it on the right side of the puck and right side of the calls and the bad side of the calls. Like you said, especially in that East Division or West Division, East Division. I just got my directions here. I'm both provinces. I'm east on the Saskatchewan and west in Manitoba, but eastern side of Manitoba in the East Division, you got to make sure you stay disciplined. You got Steinbachs, you got the Portages, you got some other teams in that division. Niverville's going to have good power play, I think, too, as well. So if you guys stay out of the box, but I think that with the goaltending they have, with the structure they're going to play, their in-your-face style, I think they're going to still be all right and going to be a tough place to play against. But like you said, going to be disciplined, especially in that division.
Darnell, you talked about the mentality of a couple teams already. Winkler is saying all the right things. Chip on the shoulder, wanting to come back after that Game 7 loss. Just how much can anger spur a team? And I'm thinking of the guys returning from last year. Just how much can frustration help in those dog days when the games are tight, or when the long road trips come in? How much can that memory of a Game 7 loss come into play?
I think you can certainly build off it and look back to, the heartbreak that you felt in that Game 7 loss. But at the end of the day, this is what we've been talking about for the last couple of years. It seems like every year the Winkler Flyers are right there, but they never get over that hurdle. They lose, in a Game 6 or a Game 7, and, they come back the next year, just as they're going to do this year, led by, Svensson, Jace Leagard, and I expect to have a pretty big year, Malachi Clausen. But I think for this organization, it has to be time now to get over that hurdle and not face that heartbreak again, as they did last year. And I expect this to be a really good team on paper. I think, I echo the thoughts of Benny. They have to stay out of the penalty box, because if you're getting 6-7 penalties a night, it might not hurt you, through January. But when you get down to the dog days and, you're going up against a hot Pistons team on the penalty kill in their power play, they could score a really timely goal on you. So I think it's, no more time for excuses in Winkler. Stay out of the penalty box, get your good goaltending, lead by example, Svensson, Leagard, and among those folk. And it's time for this organization. I believe they have what it takes, led by a great man in Justin Falk, to, make something special happen. But I think it has to happen now, because this is probably one of the better groups they're going to have. I mean, they've had good groups in the past, but this is among a really good group as well to get her done.
So, Skylar, does Winkler need to finish top 2 in the East? Do they need to host round 1 of the playoffs? So Game 7, if it goes that far in round 1, is in their barn. Is that something that Winkler needs to do? Or would they be fine, you think, in the 3-4 on the road doesn't matter?
Well, I think we've seen they finish in that 3-4 spot, and we've seen what happens a couple of years running now for this team. I think it would be in their best interest to be one of the top 2 teams in the East Division. You ride, the momentum of a round 1 playoff victory at home, and say you have to go into Portage or Steinbach in the second round, and you're already halfway to the Turnbull Cup final. I think that would make a big difference for this team. So I would not be surprised if that's the message early on from Justin Falk, and an internal goal for this team is we don't want to be hanging around in the playoff race. We want to be driving the bus in the MJHL's East Division for sure.
Halsey, they're going to be redoing that arena as well. So we've seen how other teams react when their barn is going to be changing. Do you think that home ice advantage in Winkler is going to mean something a little bit different, having it be the old barn one last year?
Yeah, maybe there's some things they want to put to bed and get something new going in Winkler. Obviously, it's another adjustment they're going to have to make, and maybe that's something they can use to fuel their enthusiasm moving forward, because the old Centennial certainly does have a lot of history. So yeah, who knows? I think there will be an impact there for sure, and it'll be interesting to see.